Millionaire says, fix this engine. If you're truly skilled, one night with me awaits. Before we begin, no matter where life has placed you today, I'm grateful you're here with me and my child. The call came in at 4:47 p.m. on a Tuesday that had already stretched Jake Morrison's patience thin. 3 oil changes, 2 brake jobs, and a transmission that had fought him for 6 hours straight. His hands were black with grease. His back ached from leaning over engine blocks, and all he wanted was to pick up his daughter Emma from Mrs. Chen's house, make her favorite mac and cheese, and collapse on the couch while she told him about her day at first grade. Morrison's garage, he answered, tucking the phone between his shoulder and ear while he wiped his hands on a rag that had stopped being useful 3 days ago. Yeah, I got a breakdown on Route 47, mile marker 23, Mustang GT 2019. Won't start. The voice on the other end was female, clipped, impatient. How fast can you get here? Jake glanced at the clock. Emma would be waiting. Mrs. Chen charged extra after 6 p.m., and he was already cutting it close on this month's bills. I can be there in 20 minutes, he said. But I need to. 20 minutes? The voice sharpened. I have somewhere to be. Make it 15. Ma'am, I have to pick up my daughter. The line went dead. Jake stood there for a moment, phone still pressed to his ear, listening to nothing. He looked across the garage to where Emma's drawing from last week was taped to his toolbox, a stick figure of him holding a wrench and a smaller stick figure holding his hand. She'd written Best Daddy in purple crayon across the top. He dialed Mrs. Chen. Lily, it's Jake. I've got an emergency call. Can Emma stay another hour? I'll pay the extra. Mrs. Chen's gentle voice came through. Of course, Jake, she's fine. She's helping me water the plants. Thank you, tell her I'll be there as soon as I can. He grabbed his keys, loaded his toolbox into the back of his 15-year-old Ford pickup, and headed out. The truck rattled as it always did, the check engine light glowing cheerfully on the dashboard like an old friend he'd learned to ignore. The radio was broken, so he drove in silence, watching the sun start its descent toward the hills. Route 47 was mostly empty this time of day. It cut through farmland and scattered woods, a 2-lane road that people used when they wanted to avoid the interstate. Jake knew every pothole, every curve. He'd grown up in this town, gone to school here, married here, buried his wife here. That had been 4 years ago. Breast cancer. Sarah had fought for 18 months, and Jake had worked double shifts to pay for treatments that insurance wouldn't cover. In the end, she'd slipped away on a Sunday morning, while Emma, 2 years old then, slept in the next room. He didn't think about it much anymore. Couldn't afford to. There was work and there was Emma, and those 2 things filled every minute of every day. Mile marker 23 appeared ahead. He saw the Mustang pulled onto the shoulder, cherry red, gleaming even in the fading light. It was the kind of car he'd see in magazines sometimes, the kind that cost more than he made in 3 years. He pulled up behind it and got out. The woman was standing beside the car, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing sharply as she talked. She was tall, dressed in clothes that looked like they belonged in a corporate boardroom. Dark pants, white blouse, heels that had no business being on a highway shoulder. Her hair was pulled back tight, her face set in an expression of barely controlled irritation. She didn't look at him as he approached. I don't care what Michael says, she was saying into the phone. The Hendricks account is mine, and if he thinks he can— What? No, I'm stuck on some backwater road because my car died. She paused. Yes, I called someone, some local mechanic. He should have been here by now. Jake cleared his throat. Ma'am? She held up one finger without looking at him. I have to go. Tell Michael I'll deal with him tomorrow. She ended the call and finally turned to face Jake. Her eyes swept over him once. The grease-stained shirt, the worn jeans, the boots that had been resoled twice, and something like distaste flickered across her face. You're the mechanic? Yes, ma'am. Jake Morrison. Victoria Ashford. She didn't offer her hand. The car won't start. I need it fixed immediately. I have dinner reservations at 7:30. Jake glanced at his watch. It was 5:15. Let me take a look. He walked to the Mustang, popped the hood. The engine was beautiful, pristine, probably professionally detailed every month. He leaned in, checking connections, testing the battery. Behind him, he could hear Victoria pacing, her heels clicking on the asphalt. "So?" she called after 2 minutes. "What's wrong with it?" "Give me a minute, ma'am." "I don't have a minute. I have 45 minutes to get into the city, change, and meet someone." Jake didn't respond. He traced the fuel line, checked the starter connection. There, a loose connection on the starter solenoid. Simple fix. 5 minutes with the right tools. "It's your starter connection," he said, straightening up. "I can fix it here, but it'll take about 20 minutes. 20 minutes? Victoria's voice rose. "Are you serious? Can't you just, I don't know, bypass it or something?" "No, ma'am, it doesn't work like that." "Then make it work like that." She crossed her arms. "I'll pay you double." Jake wiped his hands on his rag, looked at her steadily. "Money doesn't change physics, ma'am. The job takes as long as it takes." Something flashed in her eyes. Anger, maybe, or surprise that someone had told her no. She pulled out her phone, checked the time, then looked back at him. "You know what your problem is," she said. "No ambition, no drive. You're probably happy just scraping by, living in whatever rundown place you call home, doing the bare minimum." Jake felt something tighten in his chest, but he kept his voice level. "I'm happy doing honest work, ma'am." "Honest work?" She laughed. But it wasn't a kind sound. That's what people say when they've given up, when they've accepted being ordinary. Before Jake could respond, he heard the sound of tires on gravel. His truck door opened, and Emma's small voice called out, "Daddy?" His heart stopped. He'd left the truck unlocked, keys in the ignition. Emma must have seen Mrs. Chen's number on his recent calls, convinced her to bring her here. Or maybe Mrs. Chen had tried to call him back and Emma had answered. The little girl appeared around the side of the Mustang, her pink backpack bouncing as she ran to him, 6 years old with Sarah's blonde hair and his gray eyes. She wore the denim overalls he'd bought her last month, already getting too short. "Emma, honey, what are you—" "Mrs. Chen said you had to work more, so I asked if I could come help." She looked up at him with absolute trust. "I can hand you tools, like we practice at home." Victoria stared at the child, then at Jake, her expression shifting through several emotions before settling on something cold. "You brought your daughter to a work call?" "No, ma'am, I didn't." "Unbelievable." Victoria shook her head. "You know what? Forget 20 minutes. I'll make you a deal." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a mocking tone. "Fix my car in the next 40 minutes and I'll spend the night with you." The words hung in the air like poison. Jake felt the blood drain from his face. Emma was standing right there, holding his hand, looking up at this woman with wide, confused eyes. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "that's inappropriate." "Why?" Victoria smiled, but it was cruel. "Isn't that what men like you want? A chance with someone out of your league? Someone who doesn't smell like motor oil and failed dreams?" "Daddy?" Emma's hand tightened around his. "What does she mean?" Jake's jaw clenched. He looked down at his daughter, then back at Victoria Ashford with her expensive clothes and her contemptuous smile. "No," he said. The word came out flat, final. Victoria's eyes widened. "Excuse me?" "I said no." Jake bent down, picked up his toolbox. "Call someone else for your repair." "You're refusing the job?" "Yes, ma'am." He took Emma's hand and started walking back to his truck. "Do you have any idea who I am?" Victoria called after him. "I could buy your entire pathetic garage with my quarterly bonus." Jake stopped, turned back. For just a moment, Victoria saw something in his eyes, something that made her take a step back. It was the look of a man who had seen things, survived things, things that money and power could never touch. The look of someone who had been tested in ways she couldn't imagine. On his left forearm, partially hidden by grease in the hem of his sleeve, a faded tattoo showed. Numbers and a symbol that meant nothing to her. "Maybe you could, ma'am," Jake said quietly. "But money can't buy what I've already got. And it sure as hell can't make me forget who I am." He loaded Emma into the truck, started the engine. As they pulled away, he could see Victoria in his rearview mirror, standing alone beside her expensive car, phone to her ear, already calling someone else. Emma was quiet for a long moment, then she said, "Daddy, why was that lady so mean?" Jake reached over and squeezed her hand. "Some people forget how to be kind, sweetheart. But you didn't fix her car." "No, I didn't." "Because of what she said?" Jake pulled into the parking lot of their apartment complex, an aging building with cracked pavement and a flickering neon sign. He turned off the engine and looked at his daughter. "Emma, there are some things more important than money, more important than any job, your dignity, your self-respect, teaching you what's right." He touched her cheek gently. "That lady forgot those things. I won't." Emma smiled and hugged him tight. "You're the best daddy in the whole world." As Jake carried her inside, up the stairs to their two-bedroom apartment with its second-hand furniture and patched walls, he didn't know that Victoria Ashford was still standing on that highway, shaking with an emotion she didn't recognize. And neither of them knew that this choice would change everything that came after. Jake woke at 5:30 a.m. the next morning, as he did every morning. The alarm wasn't necessary. His body had learned the rhythm years ago, during a time when waking early meant staying alive. He lay still for a moment, listening to the quiet sounds of the apartment building coming to life around him. Someone's shower running upstairs, a door closing down the hall, the distant rumble of traffic on the interstate. He swung his legs out of bed, felt the familiar ache in his lower back. 33 years old, and already feeling 40. That's what happened when you spent your days bent over engines and your nights worrying about bills. The apartment was small but clean. Jake made sure of that. The living room held a couch he'd bought at a yard sale, a coffee table Emma had helped him sand and paint bright blue, and a TV that only worked when you hit it in exactly the right spot. The walls were covered with Emma's artwork, crayon drawings, watercolors from school, a handprint turkey from last Thanksgiving. He started the coffee maker, a machine Sarah had bought 8 years ago that still worked perfectly. While it gurgled and hissed, he made Emma's lunch, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, apple slices, crackers, and a juice box. He wrote a note on her napkin. "Have a great day. Love, Dad," with a smiley face. Emma appeared in the kitchen doorway at 6:15, rubbing her eyes, her hair a mess of blonde tangles. "Morning, Princess." "Morning, Daddy." She climbed into her chair, still half asleep. He made her breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, and sat with her while she ate, drinking his coffee. These quiet mornings were his favorite time. Just the two of them, no demands, no pressure. Emma would tell him what she dreamed about, or what she wanted to do this weekend, and he would listen like every word was the most important thing in the world, because to him they were. "Daddy?" Emma said between bites of toast. "Can Sophia come over this Saturday?" "Who's Sophia?" "My friend from school, she's new. Her family just moved here from somewhere far away." Jake smiled. "Sure, sweetheart. I'll call her parents." "She doesn't have a dad," Emma said matter-of-factly. "Just a mom. Her mom works at the hospital." Jake felt a pang in his chest. That's okay. Family comes in all shapes. After breakfast, he helped Emma get dressed, brushed her hair, made sure she had her backpack. They walked 3 blocks to the elementary school. Jake never let her take the bus, even though it meant opening the garage late some days. These walks were precious. Emma would skip ahead, then run back to tell him something, then skip ahead again. At the school gate, she hugged him tight. "Love you, Daddy. Love you more, Princess." "Love you most," she said, their ritual, and ran off to join her friends. Jake watched until she disappeared inside, then walked back to the garage. Morrison's garage sat on the corner of 4th and Main, a cinder-block building with bay doors that had been painted and repainted so many times that the layers showed through like geological strata. The sign out front was hand-lettered, "Honest work, fair prices." His father had put that sign up 30 years ago, and Jake had kept it there after he took over the business. He unlocked the bay doors, fired up the space heater, and got to work on yesterday's unfinished jobs. A Honda Civic with a dying transmission, a pickup truck that needed new brake pads, a elderly Buick whose owner, Mrs. Patterson, came in every 3 months for an oil change and stayed to tell Jake stories about her grandchildren. Around 9 a.m., the bell above the door chimed. Jake was underneath the Civic, so he called out, "Be right with you." He rolled out from under the car and stopped. Victoria Ashford stood in the doorway. She looked different in daylight. Still polished, still wearing expensive clothes, jeans that probably cost more than his rent, a cashmere sweater, designer sunglasses pushed up on her head. But she looked tired. There were shadows under her eyes, and she held herself with a tension that suggested she'd rather be anywhere else. Jake stood slowly, wiping his hands. "Ma'am?" "Mr. Morrison?" Her voice was controlled, professional. "I came to apologize." Jake waited. Victoria took a breath. "What I said yesterday was inexcusable. I was frustrated, stressed about my dinner plans, and I took it out on you. That was wrong, especially in front of your daughter." Jake studied her face, looking for sincerity. Found something, though he wasn't sure what. "Your daughter," she continued. "Emma, right? I'm sorry she had to hear that." "Me too," Jake said quietly. "I'd like to pay you for your time yesterday, and for the inconvenience." She pulled out her phone. "I can Venmo you, or—" "Not necessary, ma'am. It's the least I can do." "I said it's not necessary." Jake's voice was firm, but not unkind. "Apology accepted." Victoria looked like she wanted to argue, then nodded. She glanced around the garage, taking in the aging equipment, the cracked concrete floor, the space heater working overtime in the corner. "Did you get your car fixed?" Jake asked. "Yes, eventually. Cost me $300 for an emergency service call." She smiled. "But it was self-deprecating. Probably should have just let you handle it." "Probably." They stood there for a moment, the silence stretching. Victoria shifted her weight, clearly uncomfortable. "Can I ask you something?" she said finally. "Sure. Why did you refuse? I mean, I know why you should have. But most people, if someone offers them money, even if the situation is ugly, they take it. Especially someone who—" She trailed off. "Someone who needs it?" Jake finished. "Yeah, I need it. Got bills like everyone else. But I've got something I need more." "What's that?" "My daughter's respect." Jake looked at her directly. "Emma's 6 years old. Everything I do, she's watching, learning. I teach her every day that dignity isn't for sale. That self-respect matters more than comfort. If I'd taken your deal, what would that have taught her?" Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "You're right," she said softly. "You're absolutely right." The bell chimed again. An older man came in, needing an estimate on a brake job. Jake excused himself, talked with the customer, scheduled the work for next week. When he turned back, Victoria was still there. "I should go," she said. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry, truly." "I appreciate that, ma'am." She started toward the door, then stopped. "Can I ask what those numbers mean? On your arm?" Jake glanced at his forearm, at the faded tattoo barely visible under the grease stains. "Old military unit." "You served?" "Long time ago." Victoria nodded slowly. "Thank you for your service." She paused. "And thank you for yesterday. For reminding me that not everyone has forgotten what honor means." After she left, Jake stood in the empty garage for a while, thinking. Then he got back to work. The rest of the day passed normally. Oil changes, tire rotations, a belt replacement. At 3 p.m. he closed up and walked to Emma's school. She came running out with her friend Sophia, a small girl with dark hair and serious eyes. "Daddy, this is Sophia." "Nice to meet you, Sophia." The girl looked up at him shyly. "Emma says you fix cars." "That's right. My mom's car makes a funny noise, like a grinding sound when she brakes." Jake smiled. "Sounds like your brake pads might be worn. You tell your mom to bring it by, I'll take a look. No charge for the inspection." Sophia's face lit up. "Really?" "Really." That evening, after dinner and homework and bath time, Jake tucked Emma into bed. Her room was small but cozy, with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling and her favorite stuffed animals lined up on the shelf. "Daddy?" she said as he was turning off the light. "Yeah, princess?" "That lady today. The one from yesterday. She came to say sorry, right?" "She did." That was good of her. Yes, it was. Daddy? Emma's voice was smaller now. Do you ever wish we had more money, like that lady? Jake came back to the bed, sat down beside her. Emma, you know what makes me rich? What? You. Every morning I wake up and you're here. Every night I get to tuck you in. Every day I get to be your dad. That's the best treasure in the world. Emma hugged him. I love you, Daddy. Love you more, Princess. Love you most. Later, after Emma was asleep, Jake sat on the couch in the dark, drinking a beer and thinking. He thought about Victoria Ashford, about her apology, about the look on her face when she'd asked about dignity. He thought about the choices he'd made, the life he'd built. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't easy, but it was honest. And it was his, and it was enough. Somewhere across town, Victoria Ashford sat in her penthouse apartment, looking out at the city lights, and wondered why the apology she'd given to a mechanic had left her feeling more unsettled than any business deal she'd ever closed. Neither of them knew that their paths would cross again. Neither of them knew what was coming. 3 days passed. Jake fell back into his routine. Work, Emma, sleep, repeat. The Morrisons' garage rhythm that had sustained him since Sarah's death. There was comfort in the predictability, in knowing exactly what each day would bring. Thursday afternoon, he was finishing up a transmission job when a sleek black Mercedes pulled into the lot. The door opened and Victoria Ashford stepped out, but she wasn't alone. A man emerged from the passenger side, tall, handsome in that polished way money could buy, wearing a suit that probably cost what Jake made in a month. Mr. Morrison? Victoria called out. She sounded different, more confident. The uncertainty from her apology visit was gone. This is Marcus Hendricks. He needs some work done on his car. Marcus walked forward, extending his hand. Jake shook it, noting the firm grip that was just a fraction too tight. The handshake of someone who needed to prove something. Victoria speaks highly of your work, Marcus said. His tone was pleasant, but there was something calculating in his eyes. Says you're an honest mechanic. Hard to find these days. I try, Jake said simply. Marcus needs a full inspection, Victoria said. He's buying this Mercedes from a dealer, wants an independent opinion before finalizing the purchase. Jake walked around the car. It was beautiful. A recent model, pristine condition, the kind of vehicle that rarely needed a mechanic's attention. Sure, I can do that. Take about an hour. Perfect. Marcus checked his watch. Victoria and I will grab coffee down the street. Back in an hour? After they left, Jake got to work. He put the Mercedes on the lift, checked the undercarriage, inspected the brake system, tested the suspension, examined the engine. Everything looked good. Maybe too good. He found it 20 minutes in. A small leak in the transmission pan, carefully concealed with a quick sealant that would hold for a few months before failing catastrophically. Someone at the dealership was trying to move a lemon. Jake documented everything, took photos. When Victoria and Marcus returned, he showed them his findings. The car's been compromised, Jake explained, pointing to his photos. Someone's hiding a significant transmission issue. It'll cost you about $4,000 to fix properly when it fails. And it will fail. Marcus's face darkened. Are you sure? Yes, sir. I'm sure. Marcus pulled out his phone, started making angry calls to the dealership. Victoria watched Jake with an expression he couldn't quite read. Thank you, she said quietly. Just doing my job. After Marcus finished his call, the deal was off. The dealership was backpedaling frantically, and he turned to Jake. You just saved me about $30,000. What do I owe you? Standard inspection fee, $75. Marcus laughed. $75? I was going to give you $500. $75 is the rate, Jake said firmly. He doesn't take charity, Victoria said, and there was something like respect in her voice. Marcus paid in cash, handed Jake a business card. You ever need anything, you call me. I'm serious. You've got integrity. That's rare. After they left, Jake went back to work, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Victoria had looked at him differently today. Not with contempt, not with pity, but with something else. Curiosity, maybe. Or recognition. That evening, picking up Emma from school, he noticed a black SUV parked across the street. Tinted windows, engine running. Jake's instincts, honed from years he didn't talk about, kicked in. He kept his body between Emma and the vehicle, walked her home at a steady pace. The SUV didn't follow, but Jake noted the license plate anyway. "Daddy, what's wrong?" Emma asked. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just being careful." At home, he made dinner, helped with homework. Emma was learning about families and social studies. Had to draw a picture of her family tree. She drew stick figures, Sarah in heaven with angel wings, Jake and Emma on the ground holding hands. "Is Mommy happy in heaven?" Emma asked. Jake's throat tightened. "Yeah, princess. She's happy, and she's proud of you." "Does she watch us?" "Every day." After Emma went to bed, Jake sat at his small kitchen table paying bills. Electric, water, rent, Emma's school supplies, groceries. The numbers never quite added up. He'd been short $300 this month, had to skip his own truck's oil change to make rent. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Hello? Mr. Morrison? This is Victoria Ashford. I hope I'm not calling too late." Jake glanced at the clock. 9:30 p.m. "Everything okay?" "Yes, She paused. "I wanted to thank you again for today, and to ask if you'd be willing to do some work for our company. We have a fleet of vehicles that need regular maintenance." Marcus was impressed, and so am I. "What kind of vehicles?" "Sedans mostly. About 20 of them. We'd need weekly service, standard maintenance." Jake did quick math in his head. That kind of contract would solve his financial problems for the next year. "That's generous, Ms. Ashford, but I'm just a one-man shop. I couldn't handle that volume. We'd work with your schedule and we'd pay premium rates." "Why?" Jake asked bluntly. Victoria was quiet for a moment. "Because you're honest. Because you saved Marcus $30,000 for $75. Because in a world where everyone's looking for an angle, you just do good work." She paused. "And because I think I misjudged you and I'd like to make up for that." Jake thought about Emma's school expenses. The leak in their bathroom ceiling. The fact that his truck needed new tires before winter. "I'll think about it," he said. "That's all I ask. Good night, Mr. Morrison." "Good night, Ms. Ashford." Jake sat in the dark for a long time after that call. Through the thin walls, he could hear their neighbor's TV, a baby crying 2 floors up, the sound of the city settling into night. He thought about the black SUV, about Victoria's offer, about the strange feeling that his quiet life was about to get complicated. In his bedroom, on the small table beside his bed, there was a photo of Sarah holding newborn Emma. Beside it, a locked box he never opened. Inside that box were medals, commendations, and memories of a man he used to be. A man who had done things most people couldn't imagine. A man who had saved lives and taken them. Who had walked through hell and come out the other side. That man was still there beneath the grease-stained work shirts and the quiet father routine. Still watching. Still ready. Jake Morrison had left that life behind for Emma. For the chance to be the father she deserved. But if someone threatened his daughter, that man would come back. And no amount of money or power would be able to stop what happened next. But Jake didn't know, not yet, that the black SUV had nothing to do with Victoria Ashford. He didn't know that someone from his old life had found him. Someone who remembered the things Jake had done, the missions he'd completed, the enemies he'd made. He didn't know that the quiet life he'd built was already fracturing, that forces were moving in the shadows, that his past was about to collide with his present in ways that would test everything he'd become. All he knew, sitting in his kitchen at 10 p.m., was that something had changed. The air felt different, charged with possibility and danger. Jake checked the locks on the doors, looked in on Emma one more time, and went to bed. Tomorrow, he would go back to work. Tomorrow, he would be the mechanic again, the single father, the ordinary man. But deep inside, the soldier was waking up. and the soldier never forgot. Friday morning started like any other, but Jake couldn't shake the unease that had settled in his chest since seeing that black SUV. He walked Emma to school, scanning the streets with eyes that most people would think were just tired. But Jake wasn't tired. He was alert, watching. At the school gate, Emma hugged him extra tight. "You okay, princess? You seem worried, Daddy." Kids saw everything. Jake forced a smile. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just thinking about work." "Okay." She kissed his cheek. "Love you most." "Love you more than most," he said. Their new variation, and watched her run inside. Back at the garage, Jake found Marcus Hendricks waiting for him, leaning against a different Mercedes, this one white, clearly his personal vehicle. "Mr. Morrison, got a minute?" "Sure." Jake unlocked the bay door. "What can I do for you?" Marcus followed him inside, looked around the garage with the casual assessment of someone used to evaluating value. "Victoria told me about your situation. Single father, running this place solo. It's a living. It's more than that. You've got something most businesses never find. Trust." Marcus pulled out a folder. "I did some research. Called a few people whose cars you've worked on. Mrs. Patterson, Tom Chen, the Rodriguez family. Every single one of them said the same thing. You're honest, you don't overcharge, and you treat people right." Jake waited, saying nothing. "I want to invest in your garage," Marcus said. "Help you expand. You. New equipment, another bay, maybe hire an assistant. In exchange, you handle all the maintenance for my company's fleet plus Victoria's firm. That's about 40 vehicles total." "That's generous, Mr. Hendricks, but I know what you're going to say. You don't want charity. This isn't charity, it's business." Marcus opened the folder, showed Jake projected numbers. "You'd make this place profitable, pay me back with interest, and build something your daughter could inherit someday." Jake looked at the numbers. They were good. Better than good. This could change everything. Emma's college fund, their apartment, the constant stress of barely making ends meet. "Why?" Jake asked. "Because talent should be rewarded. Because integrity is rare. And because Victoria asked me to." Marcus smiled. "She said you reminded her that some things matter more than money. That stuck with her." "I need to think about it." "Fair enough. Take the weekend. We can talk Monday." Marcus headed for the door, then stopped. "By the way, you military?" Jake's expression didn't change. "Was. Long time ago." "What branch?" "Army." "Infantry?" "Something like that." Marcus nodded slowly, like he'd confirmed something. "My father was Army, served in Desert Storm. He always said you could tell a combat vet by the way he watches doorways." He gestured to where Jake had positioned himself. "Back to the wall, clear line of sight to both exits. You do that without thinking, don't you?" Jake said nothing. "Your secret's safe with me," Marcus said quietly. "But if you ever want to talk soldier to soldier's son, I'm around." After Marcus left, Jake got to work, but his mind kept turning over the conversation. The offer was legitimate, life-changing, but something felt off, like watching storm clouds gather on a clear day. At lunch, he drove to Emma's school to eat with her, something he did every Friday when he could spare the time. They sat under a tree in the playground sharing the sandwich he'd packed, and Emma chattered about her week, about Sophia's upcoming birthday party, about the art project she was making him for Father's Day. "It's a surprise," she said, her eyes sparkling. "But I can tell you it has glitter." "Everything has glitter when you make it," Jake teased. "Glitter makes things special." He was laughing when he saw the black SUV again, parked across the street from the school. Same vehicle, same tinted windows. Jake's entire demeanor shifted. Emma noticed immediately. "Daddy?" "Stay right here, princess. Don't move." He stood, started walking toward the street. The SUV's engine revved. Jake broke into a run. The vehicle pulled away. Fast, disappearing around the corner before he could reach it. Jake stood on the sidewalk, breathing hard, adrenaline flooding his system. A teacher approached, concerned. "Mr. Morrison, is everything all right? Did you see that SUV, the black one?" No, I'm sorry. Is something wrong? Jake forced himself to calm down. No, sorry. I thought I saw something. But he had seen something. And whoever was in that vehicle had been watching his daughter. That afternoon, Jake closed the garage early. He picked up Emma, took her home, and made a phone call he'd been avoiding for 4 years. Colonel Richard's office. This is Jake Morrison. Service number 527-43892. I need to speak with the colonel. There was a long pause. Hold, please. 2 minutes later, a voice Jake hadn't heard in years came on the line. Morrison? That really you? Yes, sir. Heard you got out, living quiet. Trying to, sir, but I've got a situation. Jake explained about the SUV. The pattern of surveillance, his instincts screaming that someone from his old life had found him. Colonel Richards listened without interrupting. You still in Millbrook? Richards asked. Yes, sir. Stay alert. Don't change your routine too much. That tips them off you're aware. I'll make some calls. See if anyone's been asking about you. Morrison? Sir? You've got a daughter now. That changes the equation. I know, sir. You remember what we taught you? Every word, sir. Good. Watch your 6. The line went dead. Jake stood in his kitchen, phone in hand, feeling the weight of his past pressing against the walls of his present. He'd been Sergeant Jake Morrison once, part of a unit that didn't exist in any official records. Special operations, black ops, the kind of missions that got people killed and never made the news. He'd saved hostages in Syria, eliminated targets in Afghanistan, spent 3 months undercover in a terrorist cell in Yemen. He'd earned medals he could never display and scars Emma would never understand. He'd been good at it. Too good. And he'd made enemies. The kind who held grudges, who had long memories, who might wait years for revenge. Jake had gotten out after Sarah's diagnosis, requesting early separation to take care of his wife. The Army had let him go quietly, grateful for his service, understanding his choice. He'd come home to Millbrook, opened the garage with his father's old tools, and tried to become someone else, someone normal, someone safe. But you could never really leave that life. It followed you, waited in the shadows, That night, after Emma was asleep, Jake went to his bedroom and opened the locked box he kept under his bed. Inside were his medals, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, others he couldn't display. His discharge papers, photos of men he'd served with, some of whom hadn't made it home. And underneath everything, wrapped in cloth, a Sig Sauer P226 pistol. Jake hadn't touched it in 4 years. But he checked it now, muscle memory taking over. Magazine full, chamber empty, safety on. He held it for a long moment, feeling the weight, remembering. Then he wrapped it back up and locked the box. He wouldn't become that man again unless he had to. For Emma's sake, he would stay Jake Morrison, mechanic, single father, ordinary guy. But if someone came for his daughter, if someone threatened the one thing in this world he loved more than life itself, then Sergeant Morrison would come back, and God help whoever made that necessary. Jake checked the locks again, looked in on Emma and tried to sleep, but he kept seeing that black SUV, kept feeling the old instincts firing, kept hearing Colonel Richards's voice. Watch your 6. Across town, Victoria Ashford sat in her office, working late as usual. She'd been thinking about Jake Morrison all week, about his quiet dignity, his principles, his love for his daughter. It bothered her, the way he'd gotten under her skin. She'd dealt with hundreds of people in business, all of them forgotten the moment the deal closed, but she couldn't forget the mechanic who'd refused her. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. Hey, you still at the office? Where else would I be? Come on. Vic, it's 10 p.m. on a Friday. And? Marcus sighed. I talked to Morrison today, made him the offer. What did he say? He's thinking about it. Guy's cautious, smart. But Victoria? Yeah. There's something about him. Something in the way he carries himself. I think he's got a past he's not talking about. Victoria thought about the tattoo on Jake's arm. About the way his eyes had looked when he'd turned her down on the highway. Hard, distant, like someone who'd seen things. Everyone has a past, she said. Yeah, but his feels different. Important. Marcus paused. Just be careful, okay? I know you're interested in this project, but something tells me Morrison's world is more complicated than it looks. After hanging up, Victoria sat in her office looking out at the city lights and wondered what Jake Morrison was hiding, and why she cared so much about finding out. Saturday morning, Jake took Emma to the park like he did every weekend when he wasn't working. It was their time, just the two of them. No work, no worries. Emma loved the swings, would beg him to push her higher and higher until she was practically horizontal, laughing with pure joy. But today, Jake couldn't relax. He scanned every face, watched every car that pulled into the parking lot. The black SUV hadn't appeared again, but that didn't mean it wasn't out there. "Higher, Daddy," Emma called. Jake pushed, watching her blonde hair stream behind her. She looked so much like Sarah. Same smile, same fearless spirit. Sarah would be so proud of who their daughter was becoming. "Daddy, look!" Jake turned to see what Emma was pointing at and froze. Victoria Ashford was walking across the park toward them, carrying a coffee and wearing jeans and a casual sweater. She looked different outside of business clothes, younger, less severe. "Ms. Ashford," Jake said as she approached. "Mr. Morrison, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just getting coffee and saw you." She smiled at Emma. "Hi, Emma." Emma studied her solemnly from the swing. "You're the lady who was mean to Daddy." "Emma?" Jake started. "Yes, I was," Victoria said, crouching down to Emma's level. "And I'm very sorry about that. Your dad's a good man. I was having a bad day, but that's no excuse for being mean." Emma considered this. "Do you have kids?" "No." "A husband?" "No." "A dog?" "No." Emma looked at her with something like pity. "That's sad. Everyone should have someone." Victoria's smile faltered. "You're right. You're absolutely right." Jake lifted Emma off the swing. "Go play on the jungle gym for a bit, princess." After Emma ran off, Victoria stood looking uncertain. "I really didn't mean to intrude. It's a public park. Marcus told me he made you an offer." "He did?" "And?" Jake watched Emma climb the jungle gym, always ready to catch her if she fell. "It's a good offer. Life-changing, actually. But I spent a long time fighting for things, sacrificing for missions, following orders. When my wife got sick, I realized none of that mattered compared to being there for her and Emma." He looked at Victoria. "I built something here. It's small, it's simple, but it's mine. Emma's. I'm not sure I want to complicate that. Even if it means a better life for your daughter? Is it better? More money, sure. But I'd be working more, stressed more, away from her more. What's better about that?" Victoria was quiet for a moment. "You really mean that?" "Every word. You know what's funny? I've spent my entire adult life chasing success, building my career, making money. I've got the corner office, the penthouse, the car, everything I was supposed to want, and I'm..." She trailed off. "Lonely?" Jake said quietly. Victoria's eyes met his, and for a moment her carefully constructed walls crumbled. "How did you know?" "Because lonely people recognize each other. Sarah used to say that people are either running towards something or away from something. Most successful people I've met are running away from being ordinary, but they forget that ordinary is where life actually happens. Your wife sounds like she was wise. She was the best person I ever knew." Emma called from the jungle gym. "Daddy, watch me." They both watched as Emma performed an elaborate routine she'd clearly been practicing, ending with her hanging upside down from the bars, grinning. "She's lucky to have you," Victoria said. "I'm lucky to have her." Victoria hesitated, then said, "Can I ask you something personal?" "Depends on what it is." "Why did you get out?" "Of the military, I mean. Marcus said you were combat arms. Those guys usually re-enlist. It's a calling." Jake was quiet for a long time, watching Emma play. When he spoke, his voice was distant, like he was pulling up memories from a deep well. "I did 3 tours, saw things, did things that still keep me up some nights. Lost brothers. Good men. Better men than me." He paused. "I was on my 4th deployment when Sarah called. Said she'd found a lump. I told my CO I needed emergency leave. He said we were in the middle of an operation. I couldn't leave. What did you do? I told him to put me on report. Court-martial me if he wanted, but I was going home to my wife. He let me go. By the time I got back to the States, Sarah had already started treatment. Jake's jaw tightened. I spent 10 years serving my country, bleeding for it. And I'd do it again. But when it came down to choosing between the mission and the woman I loved, there was no choice. That must have been hard. Hardest thing I ever did. I loved being a soldier, was good at it. But Sarah needed me more than the Army did. Emma needed me. He looked at Victoria. Some men spend their whole lives chasing glory, trying to prove they're special. I figured out that being there for your family, being a good father, that's the real glory. Everything else is just noise. Victoria felt something crack inside her chest. This man, this mechanic with grease under his nails and a 15-year-old truck, understood something she'd been running from her whole life. I need to tell you something, she said suddenly. That night on the highway, when I made that terrible offer, I was on my way to a blind date. Some successful hedge fund manager my friend set me up with. We were supposed to have dinner at this expensive restaurant, pretend to be interested in each other, maybe start a relationship that looked good on paper. What happened? I sat at that restaurant alone for 2 hours, waiting for a tow truck. The guy never showed. Texted me later that he'd gone out with someone else, someone more available. Victoria laughed bitterly. I was relieved. You want to know why? Why? Because I realized I'd rather be alone than pretend to be something I'm not just to make someone else happy. You taught me that. When you walked away from me on that highway, you taught me that dignity matters more than being wanted. Jake didn't know what to say to that. Emma ran back over, breathing hard from playing. I'm thirsty, Daddy. Water's in the truck, Princess. Emma looked at Victoria. Are you friends with my daddy now? Victoria smiled. I'd like to be. Okay. Friends are good. Daddy says everyone needs friends. She ran off toward the truck. She's amazing, Victoria said. She's everything. Victoria pulled out her phone, scrolled through something, then showed Jake the screen. It was a photo. A young woman in an army uniform. Serious expression, American flag in the background. My sister Rachel. She was a combat medic, killed by a roadside bomb in Iraq in 2009. She was 23. Jake looked at the photo for a long moment. I'm sorry. After she died, my parents fell apart. I was 18, about to start college. I threw myself into school, into work, into building a successful life. I thought that's what she would have wanted, for me to make something of myself. Victoria's voice cracked. But I forgot to actually live. I forgot that success doesn't mean anything if you don't have someone to share it with. Your sister would be proud of you, Jake said. Not because you're successful, because you're still here, still fighting, that's what matters. Victoria wiped her eyes quickly. How do you do that? Do what? Say exactly what someone needs to hear. Sarah taught me. She used to say that everyone's fighting a battle you can't see. Best thing you can do is be kind. They stood in silence for a moment. Two people from completely different worlds, connected by loneliness and loss and the strange alchemy of human connection. The offer from Marcus, Victoria said. Take it. Not because you need the money, but because Emma deserves security. Because you deserve to not worry every month about making rent. Let us help you build something real. I'll think about it. That's all I ask. Emma returned, water bottle in hand. Can we get ice cream, Daddy? Sure, Princess. Victoria smiled. There's a great place 2 blocks from here. Best mint chocolate chip in the city. My treat? Jake hesitated, then nodded. Okay. They walked together to the ice cream shop, Emma between them holding both their hands. To anyone watching, they might have looked like a family, father, mother, daughter, enjoying a Saturday afternoon. But Jake knew better. He knew that families were built on more than a few kind words and shared ice cream. He knew that trust took time, that healing took longer, that some wounds never fully closed. And he knew with absolute certainty that the black SUV was still out there somewhere, watching, waiting. But for this moment, in the sunshine, with his daughter's hand in his and a woman who was starting to become a friend beside him, Jake Morrison let himself breathe, let himself be just a father, just a man, not a soldier, not someone with a past, just Jake. And maybe, just for a little while, that was enough. But deep in his bones, he felt it coming. The storm, the reckoning, the moment when everything would change. He just didn't know when, or how much it would cost him. Monday morning arrived with storm clouds gathering over Millbrook. Jake woke to thunder rumbling in the distance, that ancient sound that had signaled danger since humans first crawled from caves. Emma came into his room, scared of the lightning. "It's okay, princess. Just noise." He held her until she calmed, then they went through their morning routine. But something felt wrong. That old combat sense, the one that had kept him alive through missions that should have killed him, was screaming. At Emma's school, Jake walked her all the way inside instead of leaving her at the gate. Her teacher, Mrs. Ellis, noticed. "Everything all right, Mr. Morrison?" "Just being careful." He kissed Emma's forehead. "I love you, princess. You stay inside today, okay? Don't go out for recess." "But Daddy, please, for me." Emma saw something in his eyes that made her nod. "Okay." Back at the garage, Jake found Colonel Richards waiting in a civilian car. The man who climbed out looked older than Jake remembered. Gray hair, weathered face, but still carrying himself like the warrior he'd always been. "Sir." "Morrison." Richards looked around the garage, taking in the modest operation. "This what you've been doing?" "Yes." "Sir, it's honest work. It's all the work I need." Richards handed Jake a folder. "I made those calls. Found something." Jake opened it. Inside were surveillance photos, the black SUV, enhanced images showing the license plate, driver information. His blood ran cold when he saw the name. Dmitry Volkov. "You remember him," Richards said. It wasn't a question. Jake remembered. Operation Ghost Dawn 5 years ago. Jake's team had been tasked with extracting an American journalist held by a Russian arms dealer in Ukraine. The mission had gone sideways when they discovered the dealer, Volkov, was also running a human trafficking operation. Kids, little girls Emma's age. Jake's CO had ordered them to stick to the mission, extract the journalist, get out. But Jake had seen those children, had looked into their terrified eyes. He'd made a choice. Against orders, his team had freed the children and destroyed Volkov's operation. They'd gotten everyone out. Journalist, kids, everyone. But Volkov had sworn revenge. The man had lost millions, lost his reputation in the criminal underworld. "I thought Volkov was in prison," Jake said quietly. "He was. Got released 6 months ago on a technicality. Been ghost since then." Richards met Jake's eyes. "Until now. He found me. Looks that way." "Morrison, I need to ask you something, and I need the truth. Are you still operational?" Jake looked at the man who'd commanded him through hell and back. "No, sir. I'm a father now. That's all I am." "If I asked you to come back?" "No, sir." Richards nodded slowly. "Understood. But Morrison, this man is dangerous. He's not just going to go away. You need protection. I can protect my family. Can you? You're one man. Volkov has resources, connections. Sir, with respect, I know what I'm capable of. I know what I've survived, and I know that if anyone comes for my daughter, they're going to have to go through me." Jake's voice was steel. "And that's a fight no one's going to win." Richard studied him for a long moment. "You've changed. Softer on the outside, but harder where it counts. Fatherhood did that? Fatherhood gives you something worth fighting for. That's different from following orders. I can arrange for surveillance. A security detail. No, that just tells Volkov he's getting to me. I stay normal, stay alert, handle it my way. You always were stubborn." Richards handed him another envelope. "Everything we have on Volkov's current operation. Safe house addresses, known associates. You need anything, you call me. And Morrison? Sir? The men you served with, they'd come if you called, every last one of them. Don't forget that. After Richards left, Jake sat alone in his garage, reading through the intelligence file. Volkov wasn't just after revenge. He was rebuilding his operation using Millbrook as a transit point. The black SUV surveillance wasn't random. Volkov was studying Jake's routine, his vulnerabilities. Finding Emma. Jake's hands tightened on the folder until it crumpled. For 4 years, he'd buried the soldier, buried the man who could do violence without hesitation, who could make impossible choices, who could be exactly as dangerous as the situation required. But that man was still there, would always be there. His phone rang. Unknown number. Morrison. Sergeant Morrison. The voice was accented, Russian, amused. Or should I say, Jake the mechanic? Jake's blood turned to ice. Volkov. You remember. I'm touched. Tell me, how is fatherhood? Your Emma, she is a beautiful girl. Looks like her mother, yes? I saw pictures from school art show last month. Every instinct Jake had screamed at him to keep calm. Don't let Volkov hear fear. You come near my daughter, there's nowhere you can hide. Volkov laughed. Such fire. This is man I remember. Man who destroyed my business, cost me millions. 5 years I sit in prison. I think about you. What I do when I get out. How I make you suffer. Get to the point. The point is simple. You took something from me. Now I take something from you. Fair trade. Yes? You touch her, you die. That's not a threat. It's a fact. Maybe. Or maybe you die watching me take her. Maybe you die knowing you failed her, like you failed your wife. Volkov's voice turned cruel. Sarah? Yes? Cancer is a terrible thing. Must be hard, watching someone you love waste away. Jake hung up. His hands were shaking, not with fear, with rage. He called the school. Mrs. Ellis, this is Jake Morrison. I need you to keep Emma inside today. Lock all the doors. Don't let anyone near her who isn't on the approved pickup list. Mr. Morrison, is everything... Please, just do it. Then he called Victoria. Jake, what's wrong? I need a favor, a big one, and I need you to not ask questions. Okay. Can you pick up Emma from school at 3? Take her to Marcus's office building, somewhere public and secure? Keep her there until I call you? Of course. But Jake, please, I'll explain everything later. Just keep her safe. I promise. Jake hung up and started preparing. He moved through the garage like a different person, efficient, focused, deadly. He pulled tools he'd never used for cars, checked supplies he'd kept hidden. The Sig Sauer came out of its box. He checked it, loaded it, tucked it in a holster at his back. Then he called Colonel Richards. I need those addresses, all of them. Morrison, what are you planning? What I should have finished 5 years ago. Jake, don't. Let us handle this officially. No time. He called me. He's making his move. I end this tonight or he takes my daughter. Jake's voice was flat, emotionless, the voice of a soldier going to war. Sir, I need you to trust me one more time. I know what I'm doing. Richards was quiet for a long moment. I'll text you the locations. But Morrison, don't do anything that makes me regret helping you. I'm already doing it, sir. Jake spent the afternoon making preparations. At 2:30, he left the garage and drove to a location 3 miles outside town. An abandoned warehouse Colonel Richards had identified as one of Volkov's safe houses. The place looked empty, but Jake knew better. He parked a 1/4 mile away, approached on foot, moving through the shadows like he'd been taught. 2 guards outside, armed. Professional. Former military, probably. Jake circled around back, found a way in through a broken window. Inside, the warehouse was divided into makeshift rooms. He could hear voices, Russian, discussing shipments and routes. And then he heard something that made his heart stop. A child crying. Jake moved faster. There, in a locked room, he found them. 3 little girls, none older than Emma, huddled together, terrified. One of them looked up at him with eyes that held too much fear for someone so young. Shh, Jake whispered. I'm here to help. He picked the lock, got the children out. I'm going to get you somewhere safe, but you have to be very quiet, okay? They nodded, clinging to him. Jake carried one, led the others, moving back toward his entry point. He'd almost made it when someone stepped into his path. Volkov. The Russian was bigger than Jake remembered, his face scarred from their last encounter. He smiled when he saw Jake. Sergeant Morrison. So predictable. I knew you couldn't resist playing hero one more time. Let me take the children, Volkov. This is between us. But children are so much better for business, yes? More profitable. More pliable. Volkov pulled a gun. You should have stayed mechanic. Morrison. Should have forgotten about me. I did forget about you. Until you came for my daughter. And now? What do you do now? Jake set the child down gently, moved her and the others behind him. When he straightened, his eyes were different. Colder. This wasn't Jake the father anymore, this was Sergeant Morrison. The soldier. The man who had survived impossible odds and completed missions no one else could. Now, Jake said quietly, I remind you why your bosses feared me more than they feared you. What happened next lasted 30 seconds. Jake moved like violence in human form, disarming Volkov, taking down his guards, moving with the precision and lethality of someone who had trained for this his entire adult life. When it was over, Volkov was on the ground, gun pressed to his temple, Jake's knee on his chest. You made a mistake, Jake said. You forgot that mechanics can fix things, but soldiers can break them. Break. Permanently. You won't kill me. Not in front of children. Jake leaned closer. You're right. I won't kill you. But I'm calling the FBI. They've got warrants for you in 3 countries. And those children? They're going to testify. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison watching your empire crumble. You think this changes anything? I have people. They'll finish what I started. Tell them what happened here. Tell them what happened when they came for Jake Morrison's family. Make sure they understand that there's nowhere they can hide if they try again. Jake's voice was ice. Because I was holding back before. I had rules. Orders. But if you threaten my daughter, I don't have rules anymore, I just have results. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Colonel Richards had called it in, just like Jake had asked. Jake stood, kept his gun on Volkov until the FBI arrived. They took the Russian away, took the children into protective custody. An agent Jake didn't recognize approached him. Mr. Morrison, I'm going to need a statement. You'll get one. But first, I need to see my daughter. The agent nodded, understanding in his eyes. Go. We'll find you later. Jake drove to Marcus's office building, his hands still shaking. Not from fear now, but from the adrenaline crash, from the weight of what he'd done, what he'd nearly become again. Inside, he found Emma in a conference room, drawing pictures with Victoria watching over her. Daddy! Emma ran to him, and Jake caught her, held her so tight she squeaked. I've got you, princess, I've got you. Victoria watched them, tears in her eyes. She didn't ask questions. She just nodded, understanding somehow that Jake had faced something terrible, something she couldn't imagine, and had survived for this moment, for this hug, for his daughter. Later, after giving statements to the FBI, after putting Emma to bed in their small apartment, Jake sat on the couch with Victoria. She'd insisted on staying, making sure they were okay. You were special forces, she said quietly. It wasn't a question. A long time ago. The man you stopped today, he was dangerous. Yes. You could have been killed. Yes. Victoria looked at him with new eyes. But you went anyway. For those children, for Emma. I'd do it again 1,000 times. Jake met her gaze. There are lines you don't cross, people you don't threaten, and if someone crosses those lines, someone has to stop them. You're a hero. I'm a father. That's all I ever wanted to be. Victoria reached over, took his hand. For what it's worth, I think Emma's the luckiest girl in the world. Jake looked at their joined hands, thought about everything that had happened since that day on the highway. Victoria had been cruel, then apologetic, then curious, and now she was something else, something he hadn't expected. A friend, maybe more someday. "Thank you," he said, "for keeping her safe. Always." They sat in silence, two people who had started as enemies and become something neither of them had expected. Outside, Millbrook settled into night. Emma slept safely in her room, and Jake Morrison, mechanic, father, former soldier, finally allowed himself to rest. The storm had passed, the danger was over, but something had changed between them, between Jake and Victoria, a connection forged in crisis, tested by truth, and strengthened by trust. "Jake?" Victoria said softly. "Yeah?" "That offer from Marcus. To expand the garage. I think you should take it. Not because you need the money, but because Emma deserves to see her father build something. Something real. Something that honors the man you are. The mechanic, the father, and yes, the soldier who saved those children today." Jake thought about it. About Emma's college fund. About hiring help so he could spend more time with her. About building something she could inherit. Something that would last. "Okay," he said. "I'll take it." Victoria smiled. "Good. But on one condition." "What's that?" "You and Marcus help me. Not just with money, but with advice. With friendship. Emma needs more people in her life, people who care, people like you." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "I'd like that." And sitting there in the quiet apartment, with his daughter safe and a new future beginning to take shape, Jake Morrison finally understood what Sarah had been trying to tell him all along. That ordinary wasn't failure. Ordinary was victory. Ordinary was coming home every night to the people you loved. Ordinary was building something small and beautiful in a world that often forgot what beauty meant. And maybe, just maybe, ordinary was exactly enough. 2 months later, Morrison's garage reopened with a second bay, new equipment, and a sign that still read "Honest work, fair prices." Emma cut the ribbon herself, grinning while Jake and Victoria watched. Marcus had helped set everything up. Victoria stopped by most days, sometimes with coffee, sometimes just to talk. Slowly, carefully, something was growing between them. Something neither of them wanted to rush, but both of them recognized. A second chance. A new beginning. The kind you don't find by looking. The kind that finds you when you're finally ready. And on quiet nights, after Emma was asleep, Jake would sit on his couch and think about the journey that had brought him here. From soldier to mechanic. From husband to widower to single father. From enemy to friend to something that might someday be love. He thought about the children he'd saved. About Volkov rotting in a federal prison. About the life he'd built from nothing but determination and love. And he thought about dignity. About the moment on that highway when he'd walked away from easy money and easier choices. About how that single decision had set everything else in motion. Sarah had been right. Some things mattered more than success, more than wealth, more than anything the world could offer. Honor mattered. Integrity mattered. Love mattered. And in the end, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.